Um, I'm not really worried about the Tom fight. I'm really worried about the Pereira fight. That's what I want to do. That's what I want to do, and I think if the UFC wants to have me back, then I think that's the fight they'll make. I've been really clear about my intentions. Um, that's what I want, and I mean, I just feel like anybody would understand at this point. Like, I'll retire the heavyweight belt if I have to. It's like, dude, give the guy what he wants at the end of the day, you know? And I'm not talking to Dana directly. I feel like I'm at a place now where, like I want to take what I find to be super fights. I don't want to fight dangerous up and comers anymore. I want to fight dangerous, established champions. So Tom can have the heavyweight championship. I don't really care about it. Um, that my value doesn't lie in belts anymore. I've created something much bigger. I want prayer. If that was my last fight ever, then I'm cool with that. That was the way to do it. I did the Donald Trump. That was the way to do it, man. So um, I think one of the really good things about negotiating is being willing to walk away from a deal, and that's the deal that I want. And if that's not what the fans want, then I guess I'll say sayonara.
Well, it looks like that fight ain't happening. If there was any moment for Jon Jones to promote the fight and finally accept Tom Aspinall as a potential opponent, it was in the post-fight press conference, right? If Jones is not talking about fighting Tom Aspinall in the post-fight press conference, the fight is probably not going to happen. And because the fight with Stipe is over, and this is the time for them to start promoting the Tom Aspinall fight if that's what Jones wants. There's no reason for Jon to dismiss Tom at this point if he really wanted to fight him. The fact that Jon Jones is dismissing Tom again after he just finished the Stipe fight means that Jon Jones does not want to fight Tom Aspinall. It was not some kind of reverse psychology, building up the fight in an unconventional kind of way. Jon just doesn't want to fight this guy. At least he did say that he'd be willing to vacate the title, give it to Tom Aspinall. Good, that's what the fans wanted the whole time. Sure, the fight would be great, but at the end of the day, giving Tom Aspinall the undisputed belt, which he deserves, is the main thing about that, whether he fights Aspinall or not. And honestly, that's all Tom Aspinall wants. Tom said as well, it'd be great to fight Jon Jones, but all he's focused on is being the heavyweight champion. And if Jones wants to go up against stylistically easier opponents like Alex Pereira, whose wrestling is just not on the level of Jon Jones, then he could go and do that. Tom is going to make his own legacy. He's already cleaned out most of the division. And it looks like Tom Aspinall might fight the winner of Cyril Gane and Alexander Volkov in his next one. Whereas Jon Jones, just like he said, man, he's either going to fight Alex or retire because that's the only fight he wants. So when he was talking about Derek Lewis and Jamal Hill, I think he was trolling about fighting those two. The only fighter he really wants is Alex because, number one, it would be the biggest fight currently for him. That does bigger pay-per-view numbers than Tom Aspinall, if we're going to be honest, right? Alex is a superstar in his own. Jon Jones is as well. So many of the casual fans are going to watch that fight who don't really know that much about Tom. But the fight isn't that interesting. That fight is most likely going to look similar to the Cyril Gane fight, except Alex is going to have higher fight IQ. He's not going to be as easy to take to the ground as Cyril was. He's going to be a lot more focused on defending the takedown, whether with his footwork, throwing jabs, and timing his leg kicks so Jones doesn't grab onto them and take him to the ground. Alex has the most untelegraphed leg kicks in the UFC. But at the end of the day, stopping Jon Jones' takedowns is going to make the fight very difficult for Alex. But it is a bummer that most likely we're never going to see Jones versus Tom, as I think that is the guy that could beat Jones. But man, another big fight like that gets away from Jones. There have been 3 fights that the fans wanted, which Jones made very hard to happen. He didn't want to fight Stipe in his prime. Remember, he literally said Stipe is not a draw. He doesn't care to fight him. This is when Stipe was in his prime, mind you. Now with the Francis fight, there's talks that Francis was the one that didn't want it. But now looking at the way Jones is talking about Tom Aspinall, a lot of fans are starting to think, nah, it may have been Jones that didn't want to fight Francis. And in fact, Francis said the same thing. Francis said he wanted to fight Jones. And remember Jones is negotiating for so much money? His coach came out there and said that Jones deserved Conor McGregor money to fight Francis Ngannou, which is insane. And now he straight up is just ducking Tom. Literally says that he doesn't want to fight dangerous up-and-comers like Tom Aspinall and would rather fight dangerous champions like Alex Pereira. And dude, what's crazy about all of that, if he does get the Alex fight, and let's say he submits him in the first round, so many fans are going to look back at Jones' career and see that he beat Stipe. He beat Alex as well while ducking the biggest challenge of his career at the time, which was Tom Aspinall. At least if he vacates the belt and allows Tom to fight next year, defending his undisputed title, at least that would be good. Hopefully he doesn't hold on to that belt for like another year. But then what do you do with Tom? Let's say he goes out there and fights Ciryl Gane, submits him in the first or second round, which would most likely be the way that fight goes. Who does Tom fight? Does he have to lap the division and go up against Volkov again? Or Pavlovich or Blades? Does he fight Almeida or Spivak again? The only fight at that point for Tom Aspinall would be maybe Alex Pereira going up to the heavyweight division, trying to get a third title. Other than that, dude, Tom has just cleaned out his weight class if he beats Gane. And that would be 2 title defenses, right? One more and he'll tie Stipe for most consecutive title defenses in heavyweight history. That's the crazy thing about this fight. I've talked about it many times. Tom is so close to greatness. Fans don't even understand that yet. That's another reason this Jones fight is so big. Tom is like 2 fights away from tying the record for most consecutive title defenses at heavyweight. He's like another year or 2 from arguably going down as the greatest heavyweight of all time. Bro is already a champion and defended his belt and has cleaned out the majority of the top 10. If he fights Ciryl Gane and Alex Pereira, defends his belt against both of those guys, which they should be both easy fights for Tom. In his next 2 title defenses, he's one of the greatest heavyweights ever. One more win from there and he is arguably the greatest heavyweight that's ever done it. All he needs is 1 to 2 years of wins and Tom is the greatest heavyweight of all time. To call Tom an up-and-comer when he's accomplished so much already, more than most heavyweight champions, is insane. So I don't really buy that excuse from Jon that he's saying the reason why he doesn't want to fight Tom is because Tom is just some up-and-comer. He's already at the top of the mountain. He's an established champion with a title defense. Most heavyweight champions don't have a title defense. And the only heavyweight champion ever that has beaten 5 fighters in the top 10 was Stipe. No other heavyweight ever did that. So at this point, Tom is going to have to create his own legacy without Jon Jones. Hopefully when fans look back at his career, they're not going to say Tom never beat a champion before. He never beat the undisputed champ to get the belt. Because historically, the only reason Tom never beat a champion was because Jon Jones avoided him like the plague. That's the only reason. Therefore, that should not be held against Tom Aspinall ever in his career. Now, we do have to wait until Jon Jones officially retires, but it seems at this point, Jon Jones did the biggest ducking in UFC history. There's never been a fighter, especially one of the all-time greats, that ducked the #1 contender the way Jon Jones ducked Tom Aspinall. It's never happened in the UFC, ever. And that's supposed to be the #1 pound-for-pound fighter. That's supposed to be the all-time great, which, arguably he still is. But when you start comparing him to the other all-time greats in other sports, it's like our GOAT ducked the #1 contender, while soccer has Messi, and basketball has Jordan and LeBron. Boxing has Muhammad Ali, and wrestling has Kill Sanderson. These guys always want to go up against the best in the world all the way until their retirement. MMA's GOAT didn't want to do that. Now he wants the easy fights. Imagine if Muhammad Ali said, no, I don't want to fight George Foreman. I don't want to fight Ernie Shavers and Larry Holmes. Muhammad Ali fought Larry Holmes when he was so much older with Parkinson's. The guy was going up against the best fighters in the world, even when he had Parkinson's at an old age. Jon Jones is still in very good form and refuses to fight the #1 contender unless you take out any fighter who's tested positive for any kind of steroid, which is the realistic way to actually look at the greatest of the sport. I think GSP and Demetrius Johnson are the greatest, but Jon Jones is widely going to be regarded as the greatest fighter in MMA history. Now, to be fair, there was one similarity with Georges St. Pierre, that he didn't want to rematch Johnny Hendricks, but at least he fought Johnny Hendricks. At least he was in there throwing punches with the guy. Jon Jones did the same thing with Dominic Reyes, so in that way, it was like the same thing essentially, right? Georges St. Pierre lost to Johnny Hendricks, but he won on the scorecards. Jon Jones lost to Dominic Reyes, but he won on the scorecards, and they both refused to give them the rematch. They both took a hiatus and came back later in the heavier division. It was the exact same thing, but Jon Jones took it a step further. They both won the title in the next weight class, but the difference was Georges St. Pierre didn't hold the belt from Robert Whittaker to go and fight Chris Weidman or Vitor Belfort, the way Jon Jones held the belt from Tom Aspinall to go and fight Stipe Miocic. That's the difference. And even after the fight, saying he still wants to compete, but not against that Tom Aspinall. Jon Jones is the greatest fighter of all time. As an MMA fan, that's all that we wanted. We want to see the 2 best fight each other. The 2 champions going up against each other to determine who is the best heavyweight in the world. It looks like we're most likely not going to get the Jones and Aspinall fight because Jones doesn't want to fight him, even after the Stipe fight, which is a huge letdown to every fan.